Welcome to today's peer review workshop. I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Tibor and Dawn for taking the time to help clinical surgical oncology with this important work. And this is a series that ESSO provides to our peer review experts, authors, and readers. And I appreciated very much of support from ESSAC and the ESSO office. I think in the future, ESSO will conduct more initiatives like this to help everyone further advance in their academic careers. And let's welcome Dr. Tibor Kovacs. He is Division Chief Breast Surgery, Co-Director Breast Health Program, and from Cleveland Clinic, Abu Dhabi. He is Editor-in-Chief of Clinical Surgical Oncology. Welcome, Dr. Tibor.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you very much for colleagues participating. This is a joint event between Clinical Surgical Oncology, Elsevier, our publisher, and also the European Society of Surgical Oncology and the Young Surgical Oncologists Committee, EYSAC. We planned this webinar in order to discuss and to have the chance to discuss with younger colleagues about the review process for journals and how can we improve the quality of the reviews and also the timeliness. And there are certain factors what maybe it would be good to know and go through them with Dawn, our colleague from the publishing house, in order to get as good results in review as possible. And this can lead to author satisfaction and a quick publication of submitted manuscripts with high quality reviews. And we have Dawn, who will support us throughout the process, and she's going to have a presentation about the reviewing process. I also wanted to let you know that the journal has been just very recently indexed in the Directory of Open Access Journals, DOAJ, which is a big achievement for a young journal. And we would like to thank the editorial office and also the support received from Elsevier in this process. Thank you very much. And Dawn, it's yours for.
Excellent. Thank you everyone for coming, and I'm delighted to have this opportunity to speak with you today. I have a presentation just so that we can go through how to review a manuscript, get sort of the best out of you, what the expectations are for a reviewer and what the journal expects as well. These slides will be shareable afterwards, so I will make sure that we can do that as well, so that you can go through anything that is missed. Okay. Oh, may I have permission to share my screen? Excellent, thank you. Oh. Okay, it's still not letting me share. Yeah, still can't share, Janshi.
Janshi, we can't share the screen, so can you ask colleagues to let us share?
徐彪，那个 Dawn 说他分享不了这个 screen。徐彪，
可以让老师再说。
Excellent. There we go. Right. Let me go here. Share screen, and let's change the display screen. Okay, can you see that all clearly?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent, great. Okay, so The goal of the presentation is to provide
just one second, because we lost your presentation.
Oh, can you see it now?
1 second, because we lost your... No.
Can you see it?
We can't see it on Zoom, but we can see it on the Chinese platform.
Okay.
Chunchi?
I can see it. And now
Let me just...
you can share again.
Okay, so Chunchi on the Zoom is not visible. Okay,
Huh?
now it is. Thank you.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay.
Oh, okay, take.
Great. So the goal, as I was saying, is to provide you with some background information about the peer review process, outline the important steps that need to be taken when reviewing a manuscript. So, next slide. There we go. Okay, so the peer review process was an established process that places the reviewer at the heart of the scientific publishing process. The process of peer review allows the academic community to improve the quality of scholarship and to get rid of any poor quality, unsubstantiated and false research. It actually was formalized in 1665, which is a really long time ago. And since then, we have worked really tirelessly to refine the process, formalize it, and adapt it so that we use it in basically all scholarly publications. Peer review process is firmly at the center of scientific publishing. And because of peer review, the journal publishes and the journal publishing processes, whether open access or subscription, researchers' work can not only be improved and validated, but it's also registered, disseminated, and preserved. It's really a testament to the impact of what peer review can do for the scientific hypothesis or the statement presented to the world. And it's really super important to our community. This is because with peer review, there is a strong argument to say that there is no quality control, and it would lead to lack of trust in the research itself that gets presented. So it's super important. The process of peer review really relies on the researchers actively giving up their time to review these articles wholeheartedly. Reviewers, who are also usually readers and authors, basically enable the process to work through critical examining and commenting on manuscripts in a fair and unbiased manner to ultimately improve the work before publication. So reviewers are basically the full backbone of the peer review process. So if we take a look at why researchers are willing to review, one of the main reasons is the sense of duty to the research community of which they are a part of. Reviewing an article is often seen as giving something back to our community. And since reviewers are usually authors as well, they understand the importance of playing a part as a reviewer within our community. More experienced reviewers see the value of mentoring younger researchers and enjoy seeing them develop and improve over time. Many researchers also review articles simply because they enjoy doing so. In addition to this, reviewers review articles for other reasons, such as reviewing them basically allows them to be ahead of the current climate and cutting edge research. They get to see stuff before it's published, and it also enhances their academic reputation and help with their career development. All super important. The purpose of the peer review is to provide researchers with an established process of improving, validating, and registering and preserving work. Peer review is there to ensure the best quality papers are selected for publication and that previous work is acknowledged. This is super important. Throughout the process of peer review, fraud and plagiarism can be detected, although that remains the responsibility primarily for the authors to adhere to all those ethical procedures that we enforce within publishing. Acting as a peer reviewer also plays a role in academic career development, as I mentioned. So our reviewers identify concerns with manuscripts, such as mistakes, lack of originality, or conclusions that are not supported by results obtained. And peer review should highlight any omissions of the reference list and if they think there are any ethical concerns. Here's just a little diagram of a typical peer review process, but there can be several varieties. The key roles in the peer review, the authors who write the paper, the reviewers that provide the expert opinions and advice, and then we've got the wonderful editors that go through that and they make the decisions. As a reviewer, it's super important to be as systematic as you can when reviewing an article. So throughout the review process, it's important that if you see any ethical concerns, you should raise this. If you suspect that an article that you're reviewing might have some sort of concern, best to contact the editor immediately as quickly as possible. Such concerns that I am describing might be a duplicate publication. You might have seen this paper somewhere else, data fabrication or falsification, potential plagiarism, or maybe it's just a conflict of interest between yourself and actually reviewing that paper. We've got lots of protocols in place that can support you with this, but the main thing here just to highlight is if you see something and you don't think it's right, let the editor know. So going into sort of how to do the review and what you're looking for, when you first receive a manuscript for review, it's really important to look at the whole thing. Think about it. Is it original? Is it novel? Is it important to the field? What is your general impression of the manuscript? You should be looking at the overall language, the style and the grammar, and the structure of the manuscript. Do you feel really excited about the paper at this stage? General impressions, first impressions, and any concerns that you might have identified, sort of take a note of those. But what I would like to highlight is remember you're commenting on the aspects of the paper and you're really not making personal remarks about the author. It's really important to identify that. Then you would want to sort of break it down a bit, looking at the abstract. Check if the abstract has been included, and then check if the abstract is accurate and it actually summarizes the manuscript. Does it have aims, the methods, the key results, and the relevance of the study all within it, sort of summarized? The abstract should be concise and it shouldn't contain unnecessary information, and it shouldn't be there just as a standalone. Note that it shouldn't be super long. It should be nice and punchy. And a good target is around 200 words, 150, 200 words, but it doesn't have to be that. It's just a good aim to kind of think how concise is it. Then you want to start looking at the main components itself, and we'll look at the introduction. In the introduction, does the author explain the rationale behind the work? An effective introduction should identify the purpose of the work or the hypothesis, and it should set within the broader research context. The introduction puts the rest of the paper into perspective. So often authors find it difficult to be a bit concise within their introduction, and it can end up being sort of long, repeating large parts, and not very well structured. A good structure is the key to be clear, well organized. If you can help the authors to improve the introduction by encouraging them to better structure the text or delete unnecessary material, they're the comments that we're looking for. You might also point out inappropriate or non-appropriate citations, or if there are better citations they could have added there. All comments are to be as specific as possible so that you can really guide the authors. Looking then at the methodology, it should address two key areas: data collection and data analysis. Methodology allows readers to judge whether or not the results obtained are valid, the reason why a particular method was used, and is also really important because that has an impact on the results. One of the critical aspects of methodology is that it should provide enough information to allow other researchers to replicate experiments. As a reviewer, you need to consider whether that is the case or not. Check that the methodology is fully explained, including any design of the research taken, data sources, and procedures. It is particularly important when a new method is being discussed to cover those areas. Also, have the authors included references to previously published methodologies relevant to the study? Those are things you should be considering. Another important issue relates to the relevance of the methodology of the study. For example, is the size sample large enough for the study? Was it selected in an appropriate way? Should the author be discussing factors of variables relating to this that might have affected the results? All these things are really, really important. Are the authors specifying whether or not the data was collected in accordance with accepted practice or not? And you should also be looking if there's any additional supplementary material that might support the methodology that's not included in that section specifically, and provide any comments as you see fit. The next stage to review is assess the results and any discussions. Most journals separate this out, so you just want to check that the paper is well structured and that you can really define where these sections are changing and what the aims are. Looking at the results section, have a look, is there any type of subjective interpretation? Are the authors clearly presenting the summary of the results obtained? You should really ask yourself, do you expect the results that occurred and have the relevant data being included? Do I have any questions about the data? If so, what's your thinking on that? What could be improved to show that the data is clear? The presentation and the style, is that clear? Are all the numbers there? Is anything missing in terms of figures and tables? And then we would go on to the discussion section, if there is one. Is the author expected to examine, interpret, or qualify the results they have obtained, and should they be drawing from that? Again, are the results presented well, and can you see that they've explained it well? Are the interpretations presented by the author supported by the author finding? You're linking everything back to see, are there any questions that you think are unclear, how things have been interpreted, and what's missing in your mind? A good discussion should always go back to findings and literature and the aims of the research as outlined in the introductions. And from the discussions, you should be able to assess the contributions made to the study and then decide if it's good or not. So for both of these sections, you would be sure to be writing about comments that will see if the author has been concise enough, have they been precise enough, and remember that if there are any changes that are essential, to highlight those. And then are there any sort of comments that you think that would be great if you could, or is there any option to add in here that might enhance the paper? So it's important to identify what is really essential and what could be an option for the authors to include. And you can make that really clear in your comments. Your comments do need to be evidence-based, because they are sent to the author to then revise their paper or look at how they could improve their paper. So you need to make sure you've got supporting material there and you're not just sort of coming up with things ad hoc or you think are maybe nice. You also want to consider the style. So again, all about the organization of the papers. Are the arguments there? Is it logical? We would ask that you look at the grammar and if there's any sort of minor things you could say about the language. But I want to be really clear, we don't expect you to copy edit papers or to really go into detail about that. But if you're finding it difficult to read, or the language is what is a barrier, that's an important comment for the editor to know that it's not really logically working, or the language is actually hindering the message that the paper is trying to present. You can always suggest that the author might need further experiments or analysis, and you can suggest that within the comments. They may or may not be able to do that, but of course always add in there what you think would be great, and the editor can assess sort of what you think and will compare it to what the other reviewers have said on the paper. The editor will make the final decision on the paper, so they'll sort of put it all together. This is just what you think and what you think adds to their decision. Okay. The conclusion, the purpose of the conclusion is to assess the implications of the results and to make sure that it's seen in the broader research context. You can go through and identify the author's main findings and conclusions, and you should really ask yourself, is everything supported, again, by the data, by the analyst, the arguments, and the interpretation by the author? So when you're commenting on the conclusion section, consider the importance and the validity of the validity of the conclusions that are presented in the manuscript. Sometimes authors can include sort of wild claims or unjustified statements, and you want to highlight where is that support, where's that data that backs up those big generalizations that you're making. So the conclusion is neither a discussion or a summary, it's just there to assess the implication of the results. The abstract is where the summary is of the study. So again, that's looking at the structure of the paper and how it all fits together. You also do have the references, the tables and the figures. There's a lot there that you want to be checking. And we've got some wonderful tools that you can use in Editorial Manager to help you check those citations, those references, and make sure they're appropriate, and you can flag anything that's not there. It's really important to have a look at those tables and figures. Is everything that you expect to be there? And does it look clear? Is the quality good? That's really important. People just sometimes submit sort of screenshots, but can you really look at it and assess those figures and those tables? Are there any footnotes? Do they link back? Are they cited properly? All of these are super important. And again, you need to just go through and see what makes sense to you as a reviewer. So you've got the two elements with the editor and the reviewer and the roles that you play. So the editor does have a number of tools that can help them. For example, editors can look for plagiarism. We can compare papers to see if they've been submitted elsewhere to other journals, if they're already published, and we can get them highlighted, which is really helpful for editors. And then we can also look at all of our databases and compare papers and potential reviewers, and it's a really wonderful system for the editors. But in terms of the reviewer, you can have access to Scopus, the Science Direct, to really help you look at these papers and help you review, see where they're getting their citations and references from. Is it all linked? So we do try and offer as much as we can to help you with this role. We also have this referencing link, so you can click on there and then you can be taken straight to other papers. Again, with that access, you can now look at lots of things that you might not have access to before if you weren't reviewing a paper. Okay, so that's sort of looking at the papers, a lot of information there. Now we're just going to talk about when you're commenting to the editor. So now we want to really understand the recommendation that you want to make to the editor. And it's really important that you treat these as confidential. So when making a recommendation, you have the option to suggest accept, minor revisions, major revisions, or you could recommend that the article is rejected. It's really important part of the process that you're making the recommendation, but remember it is a recommendation and it falls on the editor's responsibility to be the one that makes the final decision. So it's not all a be all end all with your recommendation, but it's a strong guidance to the editor to, making that final decision. When you're making a recommendation, there's two ways that you can submit comments. And you need to be really specific in those comments, giving feedback on the article structure and everything that I've discussed. It's really important not to include your recommendation in the comments. You're just giving your feedback and the editor will make the actual recommendation themselves. You need to be careful when you're writing. You want to use neutral language and you want to avoid sort of direct criticism, sort of attacking the author themselves. It needs to be constructive. It's really discouraging, as I'm sure you all know, when you get a really negative review. And so just be mindful that you want to be constructive, critiquing, without really sort of nitpicking and being maybe a little more aggressive than you need to be. Your comments then go to the editor for their decision. You will see that there are sometimes questionnaires that you can kind of use to structure your review. So have a look and see if there's anything, if you could do a checklist that might help you structure those comments. Super important. You are in a very privileged position to see these manuscripts. These are confidential documents. You should not be sharing them with anyone, and they are the property of the author. It's their research, and you shouldn't be sharing it. You must keep everything confidential, and the editor will make the final decision and will share all the information. You should remove anything that you download on your computer, and you should destroy any printouts. If you do happen to share it, for whatever reason, please let the editor know. It should be disclosed. There could be a conflict of interest, and it is really important, if you have shared it, that you let them know about this. Okay, before you agree to review an article, make sure it's within your area of expertise and that you can meet the deadline of the editor. You should be checking that there's no conflict of interest, that you have no personal, professional or any interest in the study, connection in any way. And if you do, alert the editor. You really should be declining invitations if any of that is described and that is creating a conflict of interest. And that's okay, the editor will find someone else. Remember that reviewers are expected to be honest and critical, and you also need to assess strengths and weaknesses. So conflict of interest will definitely ruin that if you go ahead. So just decline it if there is a conflict. We rely on peer review process, and it's a valuable part of our journal community. So if you are asked to review, please respond quickly and consider how timely it is that you return your comments. If you can't meet the deadline or there's a conflict, please try and suggest someone else. It really helps the editor to know it can't be you, but maybe this person might be able to help, which will speed up the overall process. This is sort of just an overview, but the editor usually invites at least 2 reviewers. And we give you 14 days, so 2 weeks. If you can't meet that time, please email your editor or the editorial office. We can offer extensions if they're appropriate, but it's good that the editor knows why it's not going to be happening, or if they're not going to receive the comments at a certain time. And then they can make the decision whether the extension would work for the paper or not. So that's really important about being timely or letting people know if you can't make deadlines. If 2 reviewers happen to have completely different recommendations, the editor will probably go ahead and find a 3rd or 4th reviewer to kind of come in and maybe take a 3rd angle of that. It can happen. And that's sort of the editor's responsibility, but they will sort of look at all the ideas and sort of take an overall idea. If it was more leaning towards reject or revisions, the editor will do that. But that's why it's really important that you're timely, because if they need a 3rd reviewer, the time resets because we've got to invite more people in. So it's just to highlight how important it is. And to always know that you will remain anonymous. So don't worry about that with the comments. Okay, sort of just a little bit of some do's and don'ts. It's really crucial that reviewers do not contact authors directly about their paper, and they follow the journal's guidelines. Manuscripts and related material should be treated as confidential, as I've already said, and you should be preparing a constructive, evidence-based feedback. Please be timely, make sure that you get your decisions in and your comments there quickly for the editor so that we can move forward with those decisions. It's really, you are a very important role for the journal, so we hope that you would treat a manuscript with the timeliness and how you would want to review, as you would want to be treated as an author. So it's just reflecting on that. Very quickly to summarize, the role of the reviewer is to be fair, unbiased, and to help with the quality and the value of an article, the quality of the publication, the speed of the publication. It all depends on you being thorough and prompt as a reviewer. The review process requires a lot of transparency, impartiality, confidentiality, and being timely. So it's all based on that, and that's the trust that we build between our authors, the editors, and the reviewers. The quality and integrity of the entire scientific publishing enterprise depends on your reviews, which is why we say the reviewers really are the heart of the publishing process. When reviewing an article, a reviewer is asked to follow our guidelines, and if there's any questions, get in touch with us. But we're looking for reports that are evidence-based. And reviewers need to make clear recommendations and be timely. I keep saying it, but it's so important. And as a reviewer, it's important to treat everything as you would expect to be treated as an author. I have a final slide here, but I believe Professor Kovacs has maybe a couple things he wanted to say about his side of it as an editor. And yeah, maybe you've got a few more comments. Would you like me to stop sharing, Dr. Kovacs? Oh, you're muted, sorry.
Thank you very much, Dawn. That was really excellent and very detailed. I think it is very useful for anyone who would like to, proceed and embark on any reviewer work. I would like to ask colleagues from EYSAC leadership if they have any comments or questions. I'm 100% sure that several of you or all of you are reviewing for different journals already. If you have any observations or anything what you would find important, we have quite a large Chinese audience on 3 different WeChat platforms. I'm just Sorry, can you just mute yourself, please? Mute yourself, Dr. Suman Das, I think, or I don't know who is that. Just mute yourself and then you can. So we have 3 separate Chinese platforms, and they have several hundreds of audience listening. That's why I thought that if any of you have any comments or recommendations or anything what you want to raise from EYSAC, that would be great.
Maybe I could start. First of all,
Yes,
thank you so
Carmela.
much. Hello, Professor Tibor. First of all, thank you so much to Tibor, to Dawn, to Andrea, to the colleagues at the CSO, and also to from my screen I can only see my beloved colleagues from the EYSAC Research Academy. So I'm really also very thankful of their presence here. For us, it's a very important discussion. For me, I've experienced doing reviews already, but listening to your talk, I learn new things. I pick up new things that I never thought. Okay, oh, that's a very good that's a very good advice. And in fact, now I'm thinking that it would be maybe this is an introductory workshop. But I think later on it will be helpful. Maybe one day we will have a chance to meet all together in person and really perform like a workshop, a proper workshop where we can do it step by step. Because for us, for the EYSAC Research Academy, and I'm guessing for a lot of colleagues in China who are just learning how to do this, it's really good to, have a practical way to, do the review step by step. And, as editors, as you are, Tibor and Dawn, you're more experienced than us. You can immediately point to us, like red flags or something like this, that sometimes when you are just reading several papers, you don't, sometimes it escapes you. And it's a good way to probably do it also in the practical. But as of today, for me, at least personally, I've already learned so much, and I'm picking up a lot of things that I will definitely keep in mind for future review. Also, I would really encourage colleagues, especially from the EYSAC Research Academy, to accept invitations for review. As Dawn said, it's so important for us to be able to move the publications. And I can really say that there's also a lot of benefit for being a reviewer. And I personally, for me, it's it's a very good experience. And as a reviewer, then you also improve your capacity as an author and as a co-author. So that's really something I would highly recommend to the colleagues.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Carmela. Anyone else, if you want to touch base or any comments, what you want to make? So let me just share my screen. We have can I just share my screen, please? Yeah, thank you. So as you could see from Dawn's presentation, the review process is not that simple. It has several phases, and this is why sometimes the whole review process and to reach the final decision of about a manuscript is relatively long. And of course, there are ways how you can shorten this journey. Chunshi, can you please let me share my screen?
I will try.
Yeah. And so this process has certain phases which it's possible to shorten them. However, some of them are not really
hello, Dawn. I'm so sorry that would you like to transfer your moderator to Dr. Tibor?
Okay. And I think what each and every journal and editors usually struggle with to keep the timeliness of the process, to shorten the decision making, because all the authors expect journals to make a quick decision, whether it's a refusal or whether it's an acceptance. But there is a need for a timely approach to how we can
Did that work? Can you share your screen now?
Yeah, I'm trying, but yeah. Okay, so let me just try again. I'm not sure that it will work. Yes, it works now. So going back to what we were talking about, well, first of all, I would like to again let you know, for those who they joined a little bit later on, that we have just been recently indexed by the Directory of Open Access Journals. So this is the first phase of getting journals indexed. And then, of course, we have further work to do to get the other indexations. This is an important step forward. And just a quick look at what's happening with the manuscripts and what are the phases and what are we focusing on. This part where the review process is, how selection of the reviewers goes from the editor side, and then how the decision-making process is. So as you can see, there are lots of steps, and the whole process is relatively long, and we can do our best to reduce things. So what is expected from a reviewer? Two things. One, to produce a review of a particular manuscript, and you can see, and Don gave you lots of details about what is exactly the reviewer looking at: originality, significance, methodology, and all that, but also ethical standards, which is really important to keep in mind. And then the other expectancy from the reviewer is to give detailed comments. So possibly not just a very short comment, good for publication or anything, or rejection. We would like to see a little bit more. Why do you consider that manuscript suitable for publication, or why would you consider it for rejection? or minor or major revision. This is really important to explain your decision. Quickly, towards the end of our webinar, I would like to go through some of the common peer review related issues, and partially have been already mentioned by Dawn. Bias and subjectivity. So we are all subjective, but we have to try to reduce the impact of our subjectiveness in what regards how do we assess the manuscripts. Also, lack of expertise, another problem. So you should not accept anything for review if it's not part of your daily work, and if it's not part of your activity and clinical or academic expertise. Inconsistent reviews. This is another problem what editors face sometimes. If you get a review for acceptance, the other one for rejection, you will have to ask for 1 or 2 more reviews in order to be able to decide about the manuscript itself. Unconstructive feedback. Again, the comments what you make, they have to be precise, objective, and made in a way that the comments can be used to improve the quality of the manuscript instead of just saying that it's not good enough. This is really important. And also the tone of the review and of the feedback is important. How harsh or less harsh the criticism is. You should not forget about the fact that next day, tomorrow, you will be an author, and someone else is going to review your manuscript, and it may be even one of the previous reviewers. Delays in the review process. This is something which is the most practical and most problematic. To receive in time a review, and we all know that everybody is busy with clinical activity. Therefore, it is probably better if you do not have time for the review, just to to reject the review and say that you do not have time enough, and in that period of time you are not able to do the review, instead of waiting for the time to go and the authors waiting for a decision. Conflicts of interest. This is really important because there are certain so-called undisclosed conflicts when maybe you know the author, you know them well, they are friends of yours, or that you work for the same institution. This is kind of something which you have to let the editorial office or the editor know, and maybe give up the review, or just to inform them, and then the editor will make a decision whether you should continue or not. And the other aspect of conflict is the competing interest. If a reviewer might intentionally reject or criticize a work because they compete with their own research activities. So you have to be very careful what you do in your work, because it is quite easy to find out about all these things on a long term, and it will not reflect well on anybody's personal, professional career, of course. Poor communication, lack of clarity and tone is again very important, what you have to consider. Again, at the end, ethical issues are important, and I want to draw your attention that there is plagiarism also in the review process, which would mean that you take certain ideas from a manuscript which is under publication but without being yet published, and use it for your own work later on. Or breach of confidentiality, which means that you use data from the manuscript itself and share it with others. So these are really very important ethical issues, and I'm not sure that all the reviewers who are invited for a review, they know about all these. That is taken very seriously by editorial offices, and there are ways how certain aspects can be identified and find out, and that has a negative impact on any reviewer's career in the future. So that's what I consider important. So very quickly, who is a good reviewer? You have to have expertise, you have to be objective, constructive, timely, attention to details, you have to be ethical, professional communication, again, to be committed to do the review if you signed up for it. And you have to be willing to learn from the whole process and adapt and improve your techniques of reviewing. as much as possible. And this is what I wanted to share with you. And I would really like to ask if anyone else has any comments or anything what you would like us to highlight in the future. I hope that we will have some similar events, maybe more practical ones. Maybe we would be able to do some workshops where we can review perhaps a manuscript online and try to present how a review process would work in more practical terms and what is important for journals.
Okay. Thank you very much for all the participators today. And I think this practical workshop will be continued by ESSO in the future. And thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Dr. Tibor. Let's meet in the future. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Camilla. Hi, thank you.